Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic is going to be about, I think the 1920s during the Industrial Revolution. They had this new linen factory that had changed a lot of what had occurred during the economic times of. No, anyways, today's going to be about alcoholism and addiction, but more specifically about isolation. So that little trailing off I went on was just my mind going, running free. And that's one thing that happens with isolation. Like, why it's so, I've talked about it before, but why it's so dangerous for, like, the alcoholic mind. So, like, there's kind of two ways you can look at it. You can look at it, the alcoholic mind as it's drinking, or the alcoholic mind as you've tried to quit drinking and you're, like, new to it. So when you're drinking, it's much worse because you're already inebriated. I always say that, like, when I drink, one brain gets taken out and another brain gets put in. It's like a completely different mindset that takes on. Life looks different. Everything looks completely different here. I'm going to take a real quick drink of my iced coffee here. Scratchy throat. Iced coffee. Disgusting. Anyways, caffeine's good though. But so you have that point where you're isolating and you're drinking, and that's where, like, I've always said this, about to get heavy for a moment, but that's the only times where I'd be suicidal and truly be on the verge of maybe doing something about it, when I was drinking and isolated and left my mind run amok. Now, if you look at the other side, when you're not drinking, but you're trying not to drink, but you're isolated, it is so hard, and I don't know why it is the way it is, but at least for my mind, like, when it's left by itself, I don't think of, like, new ways to save money, or I don't think of, like, new ways to love myself better or anything like that. I only think of, like, bad stuff. Like, I've always used this analogy that, like, before there were cell phones, when you had to, like, go to the bathroom just with silence, like if you were in public and you just went to a public restroom, you'd always see stuff like carved into the walls or maybe drawn on the walls, and it was always terrible stuff. And I feel like that's because when the mind's just by itself, it only thinks of negative stuff, or at least it always starts to go that way. Maybe it could start out as something positive, but at least in my mind, and I know the mind of a lot of other people that are alcoholics and addicts, it always tends to, like, it may start out even as good, but it's just whether it's like down way fast or a slow trajectory, it always goes to a negative place because the mind seems to just, like, I don't know if this is a quote or anything, but I always love this saying: the mind eats itself when it's alone. It just gets hungry for something, so it just starts eating its own self. So you can especially imagine that if you're freshly new off of drugs and alcohol and you're just trying not to drink, but you're by yourself, man, you are at such a handicap because you're letting your mind gang up on itself, and you're letting the crazy voice get, it's like you're putting a megaphone in front of it. You're giving it all the time to talk in the world. So you may say, okay, it's bad to be by yourself. What is the remedy to this? And the remedy, of course, is reaching out to people, which is incredibly hard because, the thing is, it's so easy to offer help to people. Everyone offers help to people, at least in the recovery community. Everyone's like, take my number, call me. It's like, that's the thing is that may seem nice, and it is a good thing to do for people, but that's an easy thing to do. Truly, if you wanted to help somebody today in recovery, you would call them. You would say, hey, I'm going to give you my number because I'm going to call you, because you know how hard it is to call somebody. So one trick that I learned, this is like about the most advice I can give. Sorry if it's not like super great, but one trick I learned was just a simple little way, and it may not seem like much, but it helped me. It helped me do it 2 times when I really super didn't want to do it because it was with a new person, one person who eventually became my, like, sponsor that I've had for, like, 3 years now, for good times and bad. It was simply, I got the person's number, and now this, if you don't believe in the whole AA and sponsorship thing, that's totally fine. Just if you need to call somebody, though, if you're nervous about calling somebody, just simply say this phrase when you call them: hey, I'm calling you. This is weird. You can even announce that it's weird or uncomfortable, which is totally fine because you're just saying what it is. But hey, I'm calling you, and I'm just doing this. Here's the phrase I always use: I'm just doing this to practice calling somebody. I hope you're okay with that. Now, you may seem like, I'm just going to say that. That's super weird. But truthfully, once you just make the call and you start talking, something will follow through. As long as the person is not completely, I don't know, dead brained or anything like that. As long as they're just like a typical human being, some conversation will happen. And I guarantee you, even if the conversation isn't super great, your mind will be off of it because the conversation itself, keeping up with it, is so intense enough that your mind you can't talk to yourself. And another thing is that you will feel a sense of like congratulations towards yourself that you actually did something. Hey, all those times that everybody says, call somebody, reach out for help, I actually did the thing that people say they do because I guarantee, I don't have any statistics or proof to back this up, but I guarantee that everybody that says reaches out, it is like 80% more them offering help to reach out than reaching out. Like only 20% of the population actually like does the asking for the help because it's so incredibly hard to do because you're in such a vulnerable place and you have to entrust another person to help you and just all that type of stuff is awful. So that's what I'd always do is I'd always call somebody just to say the phrase, hey, I'm doing this to practice calling and reaching out. And the person may laugh, the person may go, that's a good idea. And then a conversation unwittingly will start from there. But I can't say it enough. Just the being by yourself and being just, you didn't have to be a dark room, but everything seems darker too when you're just isolated like that. Like everything takes on this like new sheen of like sort of morose grayness. And Jesus, Dave, how many big words are you gonna use today? What are you getting paid to talk? No, I'm not getting paid anything for this, by the way. But just that being by yourself and just like you hear the echo of your thoughts, everything becomes like, more illuminated and you hear just too much stuff. And like I said before, it all seems to start to trend in a negative way. And if you have stupid little sneaky plans that your addicted mind says, those things start to go uninterrupted. And that's a really bad thing because you could start out with a really stupid idea. I've had plenty of stupid ideas in my life. I can name off a few where I've had a stupid idea of how to put the lunch meat between an ankle monitoring bracelet on my ankle to try to get away with something, which eventually led me to jail. I've had a stupid idea of how I can use someone else's ID to try to get like a DoorDash thing for liquor delivered to me. I've done like just the craziest, dumbest stuff. I've like had the dumb idea of just walking through the snow with quarters in my hand to go buy alcohol. Like things I never would have done, but when I was just left by myself and so desperate enough, I talked myself into it and did stuff that was much harder than reaching out and calling to people eventually to get alcohol, just because I let time in the erosion of it. Like, I think it was from the Shawshank Redemption, that there's two things you need to break anything in life. Anything in life, you just need two things. It's just time and pressure. And that's all it takes in your mind. And that gets accelerated when you're by yourself. Just that time and pressure comes. And it's just like, it's like like a crock pot turned up high because you have nobody interrupting it. I like to say these things of like positive sabotage, like sabotage your like ability. Like this is not just for alcoholics and addicts. This happens too when you're depressed and you just isolate yourself and you let yourself be away from people for too long. Like if you just haven't seen people or been outside for too long, stuff starts to go downhill really quickly. So I think a positive sabotage, like you make plans with somebody that you kind of have to keep, and you like sabotage that future day where like maybe tomorrow you're gonna just lay in bed all day and nap and just try to take time travel naps. Like maybe I'll wake up not depressed, which for me has never worked, or maybe I'll just wake up and not want to drink, which sometimes I've tried to do that and that hasn't worked. You just need to experience new things. I'd make plans to actually sabotage those times where I was just gonna like be a layabout. That's a good old-timey word to use, a layabout. Anyways, this was a long rant about isolation, what you can do for it, how to get out of it. Other than that, I have a podcast that I co-host with my dear friend, and it's very good. Everybody, we have a small but growing audience that love it. Everybody that's joined it has loved it. It's called Shoeless in South Dakota. It's on every available major podcast player. Shoeless in South Dakota. Just check it out, type it in. Type my name in, type my goofy name in. You can check out some of my writing if you like my stuff too. Just put David Eisnagel, my goofy last name. It's so specific, you'll find something. David Eisnagel writing, and a lot of stuff will pipe up there. If you like these videos, like and subscribe, or, don't. It's your life. You can do whatever you want. If you're out there struggling, I wish the best for you. If you're trying to stay sober and clean, stay the course. I also wish the best for you. If you're just watching this video because you have a loved one that's struggling or you're just interested, I hope this could give you some information or something. And other than that, be well.